Here we have an impressive array of A-list movies and catalog releases to look at, so I'm going to dive right in with the biggest of the bunch, one of the highest grossing movies of all time now, thanks to most likely its 3D theatrical release, and that is Tim Burton's Alice in Wonderland. Now, Alice in Wonderland looks fantastic. There's no doubt that the computer-generated special effects and the set design and the costume design and the production quality of the film are utterly fantastic. Without a doubt, it really is a treat for the eyes to watch this movie, even if some of the imagery is so bizarre and scattered that your brain doesn't quite know what to make of it. But in terms of anything past that, it kind of offers up the worst of what Tim Burton has to offer. It's so bizarre and so strange for the most part of the movie that it's really hard to kind of enjoy the film. It's not a terrible film, but it's not a great film. It's a little too much of frab just this and scrab just that and humdiddlyumptious this and all sorts of made-up, nonsensical, bizarre things. And I understand that that's part of what makes up Wonderland, but it's actually so much so that it gets to the point where it's just annoying at times. You're like, I wish somebody here would just speak English and tell me what the heck is going on, rather than speaking in rhymes and riddles and made-up words for the entirety of the movie. That being said, of course, you can pretty much get lost in the visuals in the film and be perfectly okay. I think a lot of what's going to come down to for this film is how much you enjoy Tim Burton movies. I've always found Tim Burton to be very hit or miss for me, which is why this movie kind of falls right in the middle. It's about a good C, maybe a C+ for the visuals. It's kind of the best and the worst of Tim Burton. It's very creative and very interesting to watch, but it's just so out there that it's a little beyond what I find personally to be very enjoyable. So I think this is one that most people are going to have to kind of see and decide for themselves. Now, of course, it comes from Disney in a 3-disc combo pack, which includes the Blu-ray, the DVD, and the digital copy. And when it comes to this Blu-ray, of course, you really can't beat it. While some of the special effects work is a little bit obvious, I think that's just sort of the problem with green screening everything. When you green screen everything, everything looks green screened. But overall, you really can't go wrong. Colors are fantastic. Image clarity is terrific, except for when it's not supposed to be. Contrasts are sharp. Lines are clear. Everything looks the way it's supposed to. Likewise, the surround sound is pretty impressive. I mean, this is a film with lots going on at all times, and your speakers pretty much won't get a rest throughout the entirety of the film. In terms of extra features, what you get is not as overwhelming as you might expect. There's kind of a look at the characters. There's like 5 or 6 little short featurettes on the different characters. And then there's a number of short making-of featurettes. And they sort of break things down the way you would expect. Scoring Wonderland, affecting Wonderland, stunts of Wonderland, cakes of Wonderland, and then a couple others from there. So it kind of each featurette sort of looks at a different aspect of bringing this kind of world to life. But there's kind of not that one overarching sort of making-of or commentary that really sort of ties everything together. That being said, it's still a pretty good release. You get a good amount of features on it. You get the DVD, the digital copy, and of course the Blu-ray. So if you like the film, it's definitely worth picking up. If you haven't seen it yet, I might recommend renting it before you buy it. Next up, we have The Road, starring Viggo Mortensen and Robert Duvall, and I really enjoyed this film. Now, it's no secret that I'm a sucker for anything post-apocalyptic, and The Road is as apocalyptic as they get. It's a dark, bleak, grim film that looks at a future where mankind has pretty much been destroyed, and it follows this father and a son as they travel across the country in search of what, I don't know. And that's kind of the film's fatal flaw. It's a really good movie. It's very effective, very moving. Viggo Mortensen's performance is fantastic, as is the young Cody Smith-McPhee's performance. And there's a really good, realistic look at what things might be like in the aftermath of an apocalypse. But their movie doesn't kind of seem to have a point to it almost. It's like this father and the son are traveling across the country to get to the coast, and I'm not really spoiling anything by saying that they do eventually get there, but there's no real reason for it, and nothing sort of happens at that point. And as much as I enjoyed this movie, I kind of felt like, but what's the point of it all? Ultimately, that's a minor complaint. It's the journey, not the destination, that is clearly what the filmmaker's going for here. But I wish the movie kind of had a little bit more reason for being than just, hey, here's a really cool moving drama set in a post-apocalyptic world. In terms of extra features, the DVD includes a director's commentary, some deleted and extended scenes, and a Making of the Road featurette. So definitely worth checking out. A very good movie. Might leave you a little bit wanting in the end. Next up, we have Invictus, Clint Eastwood's drama starring Morgan Freeman and Matt Damon, both of whom were nominated for Oscars for their performances, both of whom deserve them. They are both excellent in this film. And actually, Invictus itself is quite a good film. It's inspiring, and it's uplifting, and it really does have a great positive message to it. It's also a little bit slow at times, and that's nothing new. Clint Eastwood is a director with a very sure hand. He doesn't go for a lot of flash and splash. But just over 2 hours long, it does feel a little bit from time to time as if they could have maybe sped things up just a bit. And maybe that's just me being, having ADD or whatever. I don't know. Certainly don't want to rush a film that doesn't need to be rushed. But there were a few moments where I kind of wanted things to get moving a little more. I will say they're mostly in the beginning. Once the film kind of gets going, it does get going, and it is very interesting to watch. And like I said, the performances are fantastic. And the movie looks great on Blu-ray. It's got great colors when they're supposed to be. Some of the times the film is desaturated on purpose, but the imagery is really clear, and the surround sound really helps bring the film to life. While it's a lot of music and kind of score music and dialogue, the crowd scenes and the rugby matches really do sound fantastic as they come to life. So for extra features on the Blu-ray, you get a picture-in-picture kind of making of, and you also get Mandela Meets Morgan, in which the real-life Nelson Mandela meets Morgan Freeman, and then the Eastwood Factor, which is a shorter version of a separate documentary in which Clint Eastwood looks back at his films in his career. Those are all Blu-ray exclusives. Additionally, you get a featurette on Matt Damon playing rugby and an Invictus music trailer, and those are on the DVD. You also get a digital copy that's exclusive to the Blu-ray as well. So Invictus is a very good film. Just be aware it's over 2 hours long, and it does kind of feel like it. Next up, we have Caddyshack, finally coming to Blu-ray. Now, I'll admit, I had never seen Caddyshack until this Blu-ray crossed my desk. It's one of those movies I've always wanted to see, and I've just never gotten around to. And I sort of expected it would be like a lot of the other comedies from the early 80s and the late 70s that are so revered and so loved that I hadn't seen for a long time, and that it would just be terrible. But I'm happy to say that it's not. It's actually a very enjoyable film. It's silly, and it can be kind of stupid at times, and Bill Murray's role, which everyone seems to love so much, is not my favorite part of the movie, believe it or not. But I've never really been the biggest Bill Murray fan in the world either. That being said, it's really a funny movie. It was a lot better than I expected it to be. And I know you would think I shouldn't be surprised. After all, Caddyshack is kind of a modern classic, and everyone loves it. It's a really well-loved film. But not being a golfer and not necessarily loving all early 80s comedies, I didn't know what to expect from this film, and I really expected there was a good chance that I was going to hate it. I'm not a big Animal House fan, which everyone seems to love, and I had a feeling that Caddyshack might kind of go down that route. But it doesn't, I'm happy to say. It's a very enjoyable film. Now, on Blu-ray, a little bit different story here than some of the earlier films. Of course, it's 30 years old, and it looks it. The Blu-ray is actually very good, but it kind of goes back and forth between scenes where you say, wow, that's impressive for a Blu-ray, and other scenes where you say, wow, I can't believe this is a Blu-ray. Like, a lot of the farther off shots are kind of soft and have a little bit of excessive grain from time to time, but the close-ups, you get a lot of really nice detail. Colors are solid, not overly saturated, but shadow delineation holds up well. The nighttime scenes do look pretty good. So this is a good example of a catalog film looking the best that it can look, thanks to a high-definition transfer. Now, in terms of extra features, I'm really impressed with this. There's not a ton in terms of how many are listed on the back of the case, but as far as what you get, you can't beat it. Exclusively on the Blu-ray, there is a bio of Caddyshack called The Inside Story, and this is pretty much like an hour-and-a-half long 30th anniversary documentary that looks at the making of the film and pretty much includes all of the cast and the creators, with the exception of Bill Murray, no big surprise there, and of course Ted Knight, who has long since passed away. But Harold Ramis and a number of other people are involved, and it's basically as long as the movie itself, and it's a really fun and interesting look at the making of the film that pulls no punches. They don't hide the fact that there was all sorts of shenanigans going on set, like drug use and crazy parties and all sorts of disasters and a hurricane. And this is a really warts and all sort of look at the making of the film, and I really enjoyed it, almost more than the film itself. In addition, there is a Caddyshack, the 19th hole retrospective featurette, which is just a shorter making of, and a theatrical trailer. So again, not a ton of features in terms of quantity, but for the quality of what you get, you really can't be beat. This is a Blu-ray I would have to definitely recommend. If you love Caddyshack, you will not be disappointed with this one.